It started, as most horror does, with something subtle. A flicker of unease, a moment too quiet, a shadow where one shouldn't be. I'd only been living alone for 6 months, having moved into a modest one-story house nestled on the outskirts of town. The place was older, with creaky floors and a few too many drafts. But the rent was cheap and the distance from civilization was, at the time, exactly what I thought I needed. After a breakup that left me gutted and a job I'd left behind without a second thought, this little house on the edge of the woods was my supposed rebirth. But the rebirth turned rotten the moment I noticed the figure standing outside my window. Just standing there, watching. The first night, I didn't see him. I only sensed something. I was reading in bed with a lukewarm cup of tea resting on my nightstand, my only light source, the cheap lamp I'd bought secondhand. It was nearly midnight, and the wind had picked up, hissing through the trees like it had secrets to share. That was when I felt it. Eyes. It sounds cliché, I know. But if you've ever truly felt watched, your spine tightening like piano wire, your breath stuttering for no physical reason, you'll know what I mean. I turned to the window by instinct, heart thumping louder than the wind. Nothing. Just the window pane and its reflection, my own worried expression staring back at me. I chalked it up to anxiety. New house, new town. Nothing but my thoughts to keep me company. But the feeling persisted. Every night, like clockwork, I'd find myself unable to relax once the sun went down. My routine became a fortress of distractions. Podcasts, video calls with old friends, even sleeping pills on some nights. Still, the sense of being watched intensified, centering on the bedroom window that faced the narrow tree line about 50 feet away. I took to closing the blinds before dusk, pulling the heavy curtain tight, trying to shut out whatever irrational paranoia was creeping in. It didn't help. If anything, it made things worse. One night, while brushing my teeth in the dim bathroom, I saw it. Just a glimpse. A figure in the reflection of the hallway mirror, standing motionless in the darkened window at the end of the hall. Tall, impossibly thin, arms too long for its body. I spun around, toothbrush falling into the sink, foam flecking my chin. Nothing. The window was empty. I approached slowly, every nerve in my body telling me to stop. I turned on the porch light, flipped the switch like I was activating a weapon. Still nothing. No footprints in the frost-covered grass, no rustling leaves, no sound of retreat. But the reflection. I know what I saw. That night, I didn't sleep. I locked every door and window and sat on the couch with a kitchen knife in my lap, jumpy at every creak and groan of the old house. The next morning, I found footprints. They started at the edge of the tree line and stopped abruptly outside my bedroom window. Not boot prints, not sneakers, bare feet. Human-shaped, but wrong. Each toe too pointed, the arch exaggerated like the bones had been stretched or broken. I stared at them for a long time, breath fogging the cold air, heart racing like a bird. Trapped in a cage. Something had been there, and not just once. I checked the ground more carefully and found older prints partially melted by sun and wind. This wasn't a one-time occurrence. Someone, or something, had been standing outside my bedroom night after night, watching. I called the sheriff's office. A deputy came out later that afternoon, a man named Holbrook, who looked more like a retired quarterback than a law enforcement officer. He was polite, but skeptical. Said it was probably a prank. Kids from town daring each other to sneak out to the edge of the woods, maybe even someone on something stronger than weed. I showed him the prints, and his expression soured slightly, but he didn't say much. Promised to patrol the area more, especially at night. He left with a tip of his hat and a look in his eyes that said, "You're wasting our time." Maybe I was. Maybe I wasn't. That night, I didn't go to bed. I set up a chair in the corner of the room where I had a clear view of the window, Curtain pulled back just enough to peek through. I had a camera too, one of those cheap motion-sensing trail cams meant for spotting deer or coyotes. I rigged it to face the window from the inside, figuring if the thing showed up again, I'd have proof. Hours passed. The wind howled. The house groaned. At one point, I thought I saw something move near the trees, but it could have been the wind playing tricks. I must have dozed off because when I opened my eyes again, it was 4:47 a.m., and the camera was flashing red. Motion detected. I scrambled to the device, heart in my throat, and replayed the footage. At exactly 3:12 a.m., the camera caught something. The video was grainy, the image unstable, but there, just outside the window, was a shape. Not a man. Not quite. It was tall, lanky, hunched like its spine was warped. Its head tilted sideways, unnaturally far. And it was smiling. No, grinning. A long, jagged mouth like a tear in a fabric that didn't belong on a human face. It didn't move. Just stared into the window for 27 seconds before vanishing in a flicker of static. I threw up in the bathroom. My body shook uncontrollably for what felt like hours. I couldn't deny it anymore. Something unnatural was watching me. Something wrong. I copied the footage to my laptop and emailed it to myself, thinking maybe I could send it to the sheriff, to a journalist, anyone who might believe me. But when I opened the file again later that afternoon, it was gone. Corrupted. Just static and silence. No image, no timestamp. Like it had never been there. I started seeing him in other windows after that. The reflection in my TV at night, even when it was turned off. In the back window of my car when I checked the rearview mirror. I even thought I saw his shape in my coffee pot one morning. Just a flash, a glimmer of distorted limbs and a crooked smile, but it was enough to send the mug shattering to the floor. I became paranoid, unwell. I stopped leaving the house, afraid I'd come back to find the twisted man inside, waiting. I stopped answering phone calls. I blocked the windows with cardboard and duct tape. I taped crosses made of wood over the front and back doors, even though I wasn't religious. I just needed to do something. Anything. Then came the night of the scratching. It was soft at first, like fingernails on glass. It started around midnight and didn't stop. I stayed in bed, clutching the knife I'd kept under my pillow. Every light in the house turned on. The scratching moved from one window to the next, slow and deliberate, circling the house like a predator. At one point it stopped, and I dared to hope it was gone. Then the bedroom window rattled. I turned slowly. The cardboard I'd duct taped over it was vibrating. The sound unmistakable. Something was behind it. I didn't move. I didn't blink. I didn't breathe. Then I heard the whisper. It was muffled through the barrier, but I could still make it out. A voice like dry leaves. On concrete, broken and wet and hungry. It said only one thing. "Let me see you," I screamed. I ran. I locked myself in the bathroom and didn't leave until dawn. When I finally emerged, the cardboard had been torn down. Not cut, not peeled. Torn. Like claws had shredded it apart. And scratched into the glass were 5 words, etched deep and deliberate. "I like how you look." I didn't know what to do. I still don't. I'm writing this now in a motel room 20 miles away, the blinds drawn, the TV playing static just to have some noise. But I can't stop thinking about the man in the window, about that crooked smile, about the way his head tilted like it was studying me, like it was learning. I thought leaving the house might help, that maybe I could outrun it. But last night I saw something in the window of the motel room across the parking lot. Something tall, something bent, something smiling. And now I realize something terrifying. The twisted man isn't looking in through windows. He's looking for a way inside. I thought leaving the house would save me. I thought distance mattered. that the twisted man was something tied to the forest, to the windows of that cursed little home nestled at the edge of the trees. But that night in the motel changed everything, because I realized something that's haunted every breath I've taken since. He's not bound to that place. He's bound to me. It was just after midnight when I noticed the shape in the window, across the parking lot. At first, I didn't react. I was staring, half awake, out at the empty road and flickering streetlight beyond the motel's property. I'd picked this place specifically because it was ordinary. Beige walls, a sad vending machine humming in the lobby, and a half-dead desk clerk who didn't even ask for ID. I figured anonymity would be a shield. But as I looked across the cracked lot, I saw him, tall and still, standing behind the sheer curtain in room 17, his silhouette unmistakable. Limbs too long, spine bent, head tilted like it had forgotten how to sit upright. He didn't move. He didn't need to. I stared for what felt like hours, frozen. My thoughts weren't rational. How could they be? But the fear was. My brain whispered all kinds of nonsense to keep me from collapsing. Maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe it's a mannequin. Maybe you're tired, just seeing shapes and shadows. But somewhere deeper, a more primal part of me recognized the truth. He'd found me. Again. I broke the stare and drew the motel curtains shut so hard the fabric tore from the rod. Then I backed away like a coward, afraid to turn my back on the window. I spent that night the same way I had in the house, knife in hand, lights on, nerves stretched to snapping. Only this time, the knife felt like a toy, a scrap of plastic in a war I didn't understand. Because the twisted man didn't need to break in. He was already inside somehow. Inside the cracks of my mind, the reflection of every surface, the darkest thoughts I'd tried to keep buried. He wasn't a stranger anymore. He was a passenger. I left the motel at sunrise. I didn't even check out. I grabbed my bag, bolted to the car, and drove. No plan, no map. I just needed to move. Hours passed. Trees blurred, radio static filled, the void. I didn't even care where I was headed, as long as it was away. I ended up in a gas station off Route 21, somewhere between nowhere and who cares. I filled up, bought a stale sandwich and a bottle of water, and sat in my car staring into the steering wheel like it might offer answers. That's when I saw the girl. She looked about 17, pale and twitchy, wearing a flannel shirt 2 sizes too big and boots that had seen better days. She was watching me, not in a curious way, but like she knew me. When I locked eyes with her through the dusty windshield, she nodded once, just a small, slow nod, and walked to the payphone on the side of the building. I watched as she dialed, held the receiver to her ear for only a few seconds, then hung up. She looked back at me once more before disappearing behind the building. I don't know why I followed her. I should have driven off. Should have told. Myself, it was nothing. But something about her expression stuck with me. It wasn't fear. It was recognition. She was crouched behind the dumpster when I found her, chain-smoking a cigarette like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. Her hands trembled. I didn't speak at first. I just stood there like an idiot until she finally looked up and said, "He's watching you now, isn't he?" The words hit me like a punch. "You see him too?" I whispered, my throat dry. She nodded, then took a long drag. "I used to think he was just mine, but it's not like that. He picks people, follows them, breaks them." I sank to the ground beside her. For a moment, we didn't speak. The silence was heavy, like the air itself didn't want to carry our words. Finally, I asked, "What is he?" She didn't answer right away. Then she said, "I call him the Twisted Man, but he's older than that name, older than any name. He's not a ghost. He's not a man. He's a mirror." "A mirror?" I asked, confused. She flicked ash into the gravel. "He finds people who've seen themselves too clearly." People who carry shame, fear, guilt, and he watches. That's all he does at first. Watches until you break yourself open, until you let him in. I shivered. Can you get rid of him? She laughed, a dry, bitter sound. If I knew how, I wouldn't be sleeping behind dumpsters. We talked for hours. Her name was Jessa. She'd first seen the twisted man when she was 12, staring at her through the window of her childhood home in Kentucky. Her parents thought she was schizophrenic. Meds didn't help, neither did therapy. He'd followed her from place to place, always staying just on the other side of the glass, until one day she tried to ignore him. That night, her younger brother died in his sleep. He gets mad when you stop playing the game, she told me. He wants you to know he's real. That night, I didn't check into a motel. Jessa and I made camp in an abandoned barn we found a few miles down the road. It felt safer than a room with windows. We lit a small fire in a rusted barrel and sat across from each other in the glow. Do you ever sleep? I asked. Not really, she said. He's worse in dreams. That's where he whispers the loudest. She showed me her arms then, lifting the sleeves to reveal old scars, some deep, some faded. It's not just fear, she said. He feeds on something else. He likes pain. He likes guilt. He likes secrets. I didn't respond, but I felt it then. The weight of every mistake I'd ever made, every person I'd failed, every thought I'd buried. I'd come to that lonely house thinking I was starting over. But maybe I'd been carrying my own haunting long before I ever saw him. The fire dimmed. The air grew colder. Somewhere outside the barn, a twig snapped. We froze. Then came the scratching, slow, deliberate. On the metal siding, I grabbed the tire iron from the ground. Jessa stood, knife in hand. The scratching circled the barn. Once, twice. Then silence. We didn't sleep. Morning came like a blessing. The sun rising over the frost-covered field seemed too pure, too distant from the horror that lurked in the shadows. But we both knew it wouldn't last. That day we made a plan, or more accurately, a desperate stab in the dark. Jessa knew of a woman 2 towns over, someone who claimed to know about the twisted man. She was eccentric, a recluse, but she'd helped Jessa once before. Her name was Margot. The drive was quiet, every mirror covered, every window watched. When we reached Margot's place, I wasn't surprised it looked like something from a Gothic novel. The house was buried under ivy, its roof sagging like it had grown tired of standing upright. Margot met us at the door with eyes that seemed to peer through you. She was old, but not frail. There was a sharpness to her that reminded me of old. Razors and forgotten sins. You brought him with you, she said before either of us spoke. We didn't have a choice, Jessa muttered. Margot sighed and let us in. The interior smelled of dried herbs and damp wood. Every mirror in the house had been painted black. She led us to a small sitting room and poured tea without asking. I've seen him before, she said. Not recently, but enough to remember. He doesn't kill outright. That would be too kind. He erodes. I asked her how to stop him. Her face darkened. You don't. You confront him, you endure, or you give in, and he takes what's left. Confront him how? I asked. You'll know when it's time. That night, we stayed in Margot's cellar, surrounded by salt lines and black candles. She gave us something to drink, bitter, earthy, awful, and said it would keep him out of our dreams. It didn't. Or maybe it just made them worse. I dreamed of glass, endless sheets of it, stretching in all directions. Behind each one was me, but not quite. Twisted versions, one crying, one laughing, one bleeding from the eyes. In the center stood him, watching, grinning, waiting. When I woke, I was screaming. Margot told me the dreams meant the veil was thinning. That soon, I'd have to face whatever I was hiding. I didn't know what she meant. but part of me did. Deep down. Later that day, Jessa disappeared. She went out for air, said she needed to walk. When she didn't return after an hour, I panicked. Margot and I searched the woods behind the house, found nothing, no footprints, no trail, but on the porch, scratched into the wood, were 5 new words. She showed me herself first. Jessa's disappearance split something open inside me. Until that moment, I had clung to the fragile belief that I wasn't alone, that maybe, just maybe, we could figure this out together. But when I found those words scratched into the porch, she showed me herself first. I realized something more sinister. The twisted man wasn't just following us. He was choosing who to break first. And now it was my turn. I spent that night pacing Margot's creaking old house, each board groaning, like a voice trying to warn me. Margot sat in her chair near the fireplace, stirring some strange-smelling concoction in a bowl made of carved stone. She didn't speak much, didn't comfort me. I think she knew it was pointless. The twisted man had begun his final game. You need to understand, she finally said around midnight, her voice brittle as frost. This thing doesn't kill like a man. It kills like a disease. It infects your reflection, your memory, your guilt, and it uses it to burrow in. I didn't want riddles. I wanted answers. "Where's Jessa?" I asked. She looked at me with eyes full of something like pity. "She's still alive, if that's what you're asking. But she's somewhere between herself and something else. That's what he does when you stop hiding. He turns the truth against you." What truth? She didn't answer at first. Instead, she picked up a small handheld mirror from a drawer and held it toward me. "Look," she said, "but know this. If you flinch, if you break eye contact, even for a second, he'll know. He'll know you're not ready." I took the mirror with trembling hands. It was old, glass-fogged, silver flaking from the edges. I stared at my reflection, expecting the usual face, sunken eyes, dark circles, pale skin. But instead I saw him, standing behind me. I dropped the mirror and screamed. It shattered, pieces scattering across the wooden floor. Margot didn't move. She just shook her head. "You flinched." I don't remember falling asleep that night. All I know is I woke up to the sound of breathing, not mine, not Margot's, something else, something wet and shallow and just behind my ear. I opened my eyes, and there he was. Not outside the window, not in the mirror, but in the corner of the room, standing in the shadow between the dresser and the door. His spine was bent like a snapped branch, his arms dangling far too low. His fingers twitched like spider legs. He didn't move toward me. He didn't speak. He just stared. His head tilted, impossibly slow, to the side. I couldn't scream, couldn't move. My mind was screaming, but my body had betrayed me. I blinked, and he was gone. The next morning, Margot gave me a choice. "You can run again," she said, sipping black tea. "But he'll follow. Or you can try to end this." I didn't ask how. I just nodded. She led me to a cellar deeper than the one we'd slept in. I didn't even know it existed. The door was hidden behind a bookshelf, sealed with 3 rusted locks. Inside, the air changed, heavy, damp, like breathing through cloth. On the far wall hung a massive sheet of glass, tall as the ceiling, wide as a car, covered in symbols I didn't recognize. Beneath it, on a table, sat a stack of photographs, all turned face down. She walked to the table and gestured for me to sit. "Everyone he's ever taken leaves something behind," she said. "Their image warped. Their final thoughts captured like rot beneath the surface." I picked up one of the photos, flipped it. It was a woman, frozen mid-scream, eyes wide. With terror, her reflection visible in a broken mirror behind her. But the reflection didn't match. In the mirror, her face was smiling. Another photo. A young man, maybe 19, standing in front of a window, pointing to something just out of frame. His expression was confusion. In the window, the twisted man stood behind him, arms already, reaching through the glass. I dropped the photo. "You have to confront your reflection," Margot said, "but not the one in the mirror, the one in your mind. You have to give him what he wants, the thing you've buried." I didn't understand. But deep down, I felt the shape of what she meant, and I hated it. "I'll take you to where it began," she said. We left the next day, drove for hours through winding roads, thick with mist and pines that pressed in like walls. Eventually, we reached a crumbling building nestled in the mountains. A forgotten children's home, boarded windows, rusted gates. "This place," Margot said, "was your beginning, and his." I didn't remember ever being there, but as soon as I stepped through the threshold, something inside me cracked. Flashes, a white hallway, a girl with missing front teeth laughing, a locked room at the end of the corridor, screams in the night, a man with pale eyes. I stumbled back, clutching my head. "I don't remember this," I gasped. "You do," Margot said gently. "You've just chosen not to." She led me inside, past rotting doors and peeling wallpaper, until we reached the end of a hallway that slanted just enough to make you dizzy. The final room had no number, just a blackened doorknob and the smell of mildew. "This is where he found you," she said. "Who?" Margot didn't answer. I opened the door. Inside was a single chair, a shattered mirror on the far wall, scratches on the floorboards, fingernail marks, and something scrawled on the wall in what looked like ash. "Sit. Watch. Remember." I stepped in. The door slammed shut behind me. The mirror reassembled itself right before my eyes. Glass pieces sliding back into place with an unnatural hiss, and in the reflection I saw not the room, but a different place. A memory. I was 10, sitting in that same chair, staring at a wall. A man stood behind me. His face was hidden in shadow, but I recognized the shape of his stance. Bent, twisted. He whispered something in my ear. I couldn't hear it in the memory, but I could feel it now. Cold breath, damp lips, words like worms crawling into my brain. "No, one will believe you." Suddenly it made sense. The years of blank space, the nightmares I dismissed, the need to isolate, to run, to disappear. I had seen him before, as a child, not as a ghost, but as a man, a real man, a caretaker in that orphanage or whatever it was. And when my mind couldn't handle what he did, I buried it, buried him. But he didn't stay buried. I had turned my trauma into a monster, and now that monster had found shape, had fed on years of repression until it became real. The twisted man wasn't a ghost. He was the echo of something done to me, a sickness born of silence and shame, a predator's shadow given shape and ritual by memory. The mirror pulsed. My reflection changed. It wasn't me anymore. It was him, my face but contorted, eyes black, smile too wide. And he said my name, over and over, a hiss in my head, louder each time I screamed, but the sound died in my throat. The walls of the room began to close, not physically, but perceptually. I could feel the space shrink. The air grew thick. My own skin itched. My eyes bled tears I didn't feel. Then came the final command. "Let me in." I almost said yes. Almost gave him what he wanted. To consume me. To become me. To take the place of all the pain. But then I remembered Jessa. And the girl in the photo. And Margot sitting quietly by the fire. And I said, through gritted teeth, "No." The mirror cracked. Just a thin fracture like a hairline break in porcelain. Then another, then dozens. The reflection began to distort. He screamed. Not aloud, but in my mind. A psychic howl of rage and hunger. I screamed back. The glass exploded. I woke up outside the building, lying in the grass. Margot knelt beside me, her hands covered in ash. "You survived," she whispered. I wanted to believe it was over. But then I looked to the window of the abandoned home, and there he was, watching, smiling. The world never quite came back after that night at the orphanage. I wandered through days in a haze, each one heavier than the last, like I was dragging a second skin that didn't belong to me. I had broken something, shattered it with the strength of my refusal. But in doing so, I'd also opened a door. The twisted man had been lurking in the corners of my mind for so long that banishing him, even temporarily, left behind a hollow space. And emptiness, I realized, was just as dangerous. Margot drove us back in silence. Her face was etched with something I hadn't seen before. Fear. Not the usual kind that clutches at you in the dark, but the type that's earned, old, knotted, deep in the soul. I tried asking her what was next, how to end this thing for good, but she only shook her head. "You faced the first memory," she said quietly. "But the twisted man isn't just made of what was done to you. He's what you did with it. The lies you told yourself. The lives you ruined while pretending he wasn't real." Her words stung because they were true. My whole adult life had been shaped by denial, failed relationships, jobs left without warning, cities I'd vanished from the moment I caught a glimpse of something in a mirror or window. I wasn't just running from the twisted man. I had become a vessel for his echo. Everyone I touched, I infected, including Jessa. And that's when it hit me. "I have to go back," I said. Margot didn't argue. She simply nodded. But not alone. She handed me a small, leather-bound journal. It looked ancient. Pages yellowed, binding brittle. "What is this?" I asked. "His map," she replied. "Written by someone who faced him before. The man didn't survive, but the knowledge did." I opened it and was immediately struck by the first drawing. A figure, twisted beyond human proportions, standing behind a person seated in front of a vanity mirror. Beneath it were scribbled words. "He hides where reflection is deepest. He feeds on recognition. Deny him form, and he begins to starve." Margot explained it like this. The twisted man is not bound by flesh. He is a reflection of pain, guilt, and trauma so intense that it congeals into something animate. He has no body until you give it to him, by remembering, by fearing, by believing. But if you can deny him recognition, if you can look him in the eye and refuse to accept his truth, he begins to unravel. Easier said than done. I spent the next 2 days preparing, writing letters, recording videos, one for Jessa if I found her, one for Margot, should I fail, one for myself to remind me of what was real. Then I returned home. My apartment felt different now, not just darker, but hollowed out. Like the twisted man had scooped the soul from the place and left only skin behind. The windows were still smudged from where I'd once seen his fingerprints. The mirror in the bathroom had spiderweb cracks. Even though I hadn't touched it since I left, I sat on my bed and waited. Midnight came. So did the whispers. Not words, yet, but feelings, doubt, self-hate, the old hunger I used to mistake for loneliness. They slithered through the walls like smoke, curling into the corners of my mind. I kept my eyes on the floor. The trick, according to the journal, was not to look into any reflective surface, not until the right moment. The room got colder, and then I heard him. That same voice from the orphanage, not outside the window this time, not behind me, but within me. "Are you ready to remember everything?" he asked. I stood. "I already did." "No," he hissed. "You remembered what was done. Now remember what you did." The mirror in the hall began to pulse, faintly. A low hum vibrated through the walls. My stomach churned. I took slow steps toward it, forcing myself not to look yet. I reached into my pocket and pulled out the one thing Margot said might help. A piece of obsidian carved into a circle. A false eye, as she called it. I clenched it in my hand. "I didn't hurt anyone," I whispered. "You watched," he replied. "You knew." The mirror lit up. This time, there was no reflection of the room, only a scene. Years ago, a boy, no older than 10, hiding in a closet. Watching through a crack in the door as the pale-eyed caretaker took another child by the wrist and led her into a locked room. That boy was me. I remembered now. I hadn't been the first, and I hadn't said anything. Not to the staff, not to the police, not even to myself. I'd buried it all, deep, let it rot into something unspoken. That was the twisted man's seed. He fed on what we hide. Suddenly the mirror rippled and he stepped through. Not a vision, not a hallucination. He was in my apartment, taller than before. Neck snapped sideways, joints bending in ways no human could. His face still bore the hints of my own features, warped as if twisted through agony. His mouth opened. From it, Jessa's voice came. "I showed you the rules." Another voice. A young. "Boys, you promised to protect us." Then a chorus of voices, layered, grotesque, familiar. "Let us in." I held up the obsidian. It vibrated in my hand, heating with unnatural intensity. The twisted man recoiled, just slightly. "This ends now," I said. "No," he said. "You end now." He lunged. I didn't run. I didn't scream. I turned fast and looked directly into the mirror. Not at him. Not at myself. But beyond the image, into the core of the thing. I held the obsidian against the glass, and I denied him. "You are not real," I said. "You are pain. You are guilt. But you are not me." He screamed. A sound that split the air, shattered every light bulb in the room. The mirror began to bleed, thick black fluid running down its surface. The glass cracked, so did he. His body convulsed, began to collapse in on itself, like smoke pulled into a drain. "You can't forget me," he roared. "I am what you did." "No," I said, stepping forward. "You're what I ran from, but not anymore." I pressed the obsidian to his chest, and everything exploded. White light, heat, a howl that tore through my skull. Then, silence. I woke up on the floor. The mirror was gone. Not shattered, just gone. The apartment was calm, still. The air no longer tasted like rust and ash. The windows were clean, the floorboards silent. He was gone, but not forgotten. Jessa came back 3 days later. She had no memory of where she'd been, only flashes, a black room, a whisper in her ear, a cold touch that told her she was worthless. I didn't explain everything, just enough to let her understand that she wasn't alone, that we could heal together. Margot disappeared soon after, left behind the journal and a note. Some things. You kill once. Others you kill every day. Choose to keep killing it. I live differently now. No more mirrors in my house, only one window, boarded from the outside. Every night I still listen, but there's only silence. Still, I wonder, every time I catch my reflection in a puddle or the glass of a passing car, window, whether I'll see him again, not because he survived, but because I did.